Thank you. Everybody hear me in the back? Yep. Excellent. My name's Brandon. I'm a student at Queen's University. Don't hold that against me if you're loyal to Ottawa. I'll be reading a short story, actually, titled A Perfect World. Arliss sucked on his 8th cigarette of the day as he stood on his balcony, looking out at the city. He remembered when he could hear the sound of grunting engines and honking horns, smell asphalt and the acrid stench of the nearby industrial district, and see the flashing lights of advertisements crisscrossing the streets. The sky had been shrouded more often than it was clear, and every news story was about war, crime, or poverty, laced with ever-increasing pessimism. He missed those days. Now when he stood on his balcony, he couldn't hear the sounds of urban gasoline-powered traffic, or smell the pollution, or count how many more marquees and flashing lights there were compared to the year before. Instead, he had to strain to hear the gentle whir of battery-powered hovercraft. The crisp, clean air just seemed wrong, and there weren't even any interesting stories in the news anymore, just articles praising the state of things and discussing ways to make life on Earth even better. Worst of all, people weren't optimistic about the future. They were certain about it. And the reason for that certainty, and for all the other changes to the world, was the same reason why Arliss didn't even glance at the clear blue sky. If he did, he risked seeing one of their ships passing by, and then his whole day would be ruined. Good thing I was never dependent on the outdoors, he thought. He took one last drag on his cigarette and then tossed it off the balcony, smiling as it plummeted down onto the sparkling street below. When he walked back inside, the conversation was still ongoing in his living room, where his only remaining friends were seated. As he passed them on his way to the kitchenette, he heard Garrett say, "No, she doesn't hold a stick to Asimov, no way." "And why the hell not?" Laurie demanded in her slight rasp. She was a smoker like Arliss, though not quite as heavy, so her voice and freckled features hadn't deteriorated too badly yet. "She's not even one of us, for one thing," Garrett said around the jelly beans he was popping into his mouth. "Her writing is dystopian." "That doesn't mean it's not science fiction," Toby said. He was already slurring his words and gesturing with the glass he held in one gangly hand. "Brave New World, case in point." Arliss concentrated on filling a squat glass with some scotch. He didn't bother adding anything to the debate. It happened almost the same way every week. Half listening to his friends, he collected 2 ice cubes from the tray in his Kenmore freezer. Contrary to what the critics used to say about him, he didn't maintain old technology because he was stuck in his ways. It was a very specific gesture to them, the extraterrestrial bastards that ruined his life. Although, he thought as he sipped the scotch, life isn't all bad. Only Laurie, Toby, and Garrett were involved in the debate. Gideon, as usual, was typing on his text pad, hunched over like a great bird studying its nest. In reality, he wasn't seeing the plastic keyboard under his fingers. The interface attached to his temple was transmitting images directly into his brain. The text pad was one of the few pieces of post-contact technology Arliss allowed in his apartment, only because he knew Gideon would never show up otherwise. "What about a story about the Big Crunch?" Gideon interjected. "Mankind must fight it or escape it. Of course there is no hope. Dark, but compelling maybe." "That'll never work," Garrett said. "According to the wise and all-powerful Laurie, the Big Crunch isn't going to happen." "Whatever happened to that story about dark matter, Gid?" Arliss asked between sips of scotch. "A paper was released 2 months ago. Dark matter explained, scientists thrilled." "Sorry, Gid." Laurie offered him a comforting smile, even though Gideon was back in his own world again. Her gaze shifted to Arliss, who just shook his head and frowned. One more idea taken away. One more concept that none of them could explore, because humanity was suddenly being given all the answers. Nobody wanted to read fantastic stories about wild possibilities. All anybody had to do was turn to them, the Laurie, and there was no need to wonder. "You're all idiots, by the way," Toby said, gesturing with his glass. "The best sci-fi writer of all time? Oring, hands down." The others looked down at their drinks in silence, while Toby smiled in an oblivious sort of way. Arliss stared at him, chewing his lip. Toby knew, like everyone else, not to mention Oring, but he tended to forget things when he drank. Arliss shook his head and turned away, trying to block out images of Oring's body hanging limp from a ramshackle ceiling. Laurie started the others talking about something else, while Arliss tried to ignore the churning lump that had formed in his gut. He lifted his scotch while he listened to a few more of his friends' comments, but stopped short of taking another sip. Then he slammed the glass onto the counter. Everyone fell silent. "Look at us," Arliss said. "We sit here every week having the same stupid debates and the same inane conversations, and what does it get us? Nothing. We're still here, bitching and complaining. I'm fucking sick of the whole damn thing. You know what? I'm gonna go write something. And then he drained the rest of the scotch. The others stared at him. Gideon actually stopped typing, and Garrett's mouth was hanging open, a jelly bean threatening to spill out. Laurie studied Arliss closely, looking right into his eyes. After a moment, she snorted and shook her head. Knock that off, you bastard. Arliss grinned, allowing the lump in his gut to disappear. Had you for a second, though, he said, and went to refill his glass. Thank you.